In this video, we're going to be talking about two more of permaculture's five-fold strategies for water-wise gardening. In this case, deep mulching and continuous mulching, and investing in your soil. And while those both sound like just common sense strategies that you'd use for any garden, the point with them and in this permaculture five-fold strategy is to understand that they're really good investments in your water system. And this is especially true compared to some of the more common water investment strategies that are typically recommended, such as fancy irrigation systems and things like this. So keep in mind, again, that research out of institutions like Cornell and the International Water Management Institute have found it difficult to recommend for these fancy irrigation systems. Now, it's not that we can't do them. We can do them, and we can do them in a way that's smart. We just have to do it with some planning and with some understanding, some real cost-benefit analysis, looking at the crops that we're going to produce, what they're worth to us, and then comparing that to how much we're spending on our system. But these permaculture strategies are really valuable because they stack functions. When you're mulching, you're also building your soil. You're also reducing your weeding and pest pressures. You are performing a whole lot of other great services, all while you're investing in mulching. The best thing about mulch is that it can be free, because we can grow our own mulch with a good strategy. Remember that woody perennials and forest plants love wood chip and woody mulches the best. Plants that evolved in the forest, like forest gardening plants, a lot of them, or woody perennials, have evolved in an area with this fungal-dominated soil that you get when you have these woody mulches and coarse woody debris on the ground. So they're going to thrive under wood chip mulch. So in short, we want to use our wood chip mulches around our forest plants, such as fruit trees and bushes, cane fruit, and shade-tolerant woody perennials. Meanwhile, plants that evolved in a prairie type of situation have evolved to use a different kind of nitrogen, that's typically released by bacteria. So there, we want mulches that are going to create a bacterially dominated soil. These are usually mulches from herbaceous plants. The best mulches of all are the ones that we can grow, because we can grow a lot of great mulch maker plants. Mulch maker plants include plants like comfrey, Jerusalem artichoke, cardoon, the sorrels and blood vein sorrels, things like this that produce a lot of organic mass, quickly converting water into lots of biomass. And plants that do that are almost always rich in nitrogen, because they need that nitrogen kick in order to put on this heavy, water-based, dense foliage. So these are the perfect plants for growing for chop and drop. You cut the plants, and we can mulch them right in place. We don't have to take them to the compost pile where a lot of their nitrogen is going to be lost, which is why 4 inches of mulch is worth 1 inch of compost in the garden. Now, a lot of people are doing mulch gardens. They'll create specific beds for their comfrey or other mulch maker plants, yarrow being another great one, and they'll cut those and pile them up someplace, and then they'll take them and they'll put them on their gardens. Now, that's an extra step if you ask me. So here at Lily House, we grow mulch maker plants gilded in all of our garden beds. In our next series on polycultures, we're going to talk a lot more about that. But for today, just realize you'd be saving yourself a lot of time if you planned in these mulch maker plants into your garden. So right when you're out there gardening and you see a weed problem or you see bare soil, you can chop and drop and cover that soil right then and there. You don't have to wait for it. You have it right at the ready. One issue that a lot of people in Michigan or the Great Lakes climate have with mulching is slugs, because slugs also love mulch. A lot of people just simply give up too soon, because slugs are going to thrive in the early years, especially if sheet mulching. You have dense mulches with lots of organic matter that they love, right at the stage that slugs love it. But if you wait a while, your mulch layer is going to break down, you're going to add more mulch, you're going to have a greater diversity of age and level of breakdown of your mulching materials. You'll have a greater diversity of insects and of soil life going on in your mulch layer. You're going to have fewer slugs. That's a pattern that I've seen over and over and over again. Another thing we can do is surround plants that we care about with things like copper or crumbled eggshells, which will also reduce the slug pressure on those plants. Another strategy is that as the mulch layer breaks down over winter, that spring lush season of growth when it's cool is the prime time for slugs. But here at our place, most of our mulch has broken down over winter, leaving a nice, beautiful layer of surface compost with a thin layer of mulch over top of that. This is the ideal kind of situation for all of our favorite weeds that we've been cultivating here. Things like lettuce, carrots, radishes, arugula, garden cresses, and walking onions will thrive in that situation, come up and form a dense ground cover that's a living mulch. Living mulches are one of the best mulches we can grow. So the general rule is just keep the soil covered, either by something green and living or by organic matter. Keep the soil covered and it's going to be happy. So we can understand that investing in the soil is a great water-saving technology or technique to invest in. We can do this in conventional ways, like animal manures or compost. But we can also use a whole set of other strategies that are found commonly in permaculture. These can include things like worm composting at home, which dramatically improves the quality of your compost, and then you can also use it as a worm tea that will cover huge areas of garden. So look into vermicomposting. And here's a whole other set of things that you can look into. Another strategy that builds soil is not digging. No-dig soils have longer time to develop a healthy soil microbiome that is going to build the soil naturally for you, build good soil structure. It's actually bacteria that are the main workers that build our soil structure. They bond soil into that beautiful structure of crumbly particles by eating and releasing the acids that they need in order to digest. Perennial plants are another great soil builder, and part of the reason why is because they work with that bacteria. Perennial plants keep their roots in the ground over a long period of time, forming symbiotic relationships with soil microbes that then help build the soil. Those roots move through the soil also. They die back periodically, adding organic matter to the soil, naturally tilling the soil, and going through the soil, breaking it up, and then dying back in these continuous periods of movement through the soil. And that also helps break up and till our soil, and aerate it as well. Weeds. Weeds are a great way to build your soil. You know what? Weeds are actually not a problem at all. Weeds are nature's way of filling a niche. Usually when you have a weed, it's because you have bare soil and nature wants to mulch it for you. So rather than going to war with our weeds, we need to have a strategy where we can turn them to our advantage. And weeds aren't the only plants we can put to work for us. There are a whole lot of great garden vegetables and plants that will do this work of building soil for us. Some of these are nitrogen-fixing plants. These are plants that have a symbiotic relationship with soil bacteria that actually pulls nitrogen from the atmosphere and puts it back into the soil. And since nitrogen is one of the main limiting factors in productivity of soil, these nitrogen fixers are really a great ally to have. Another kind of plant that's great for us for building soil is dynamic accumulators. These are plants that dig deep into the soil and bring up nutrients to the surface level. A lot of times these are the same things as good mulch maker plants. Plants like comfrey and yarrow and sorrels all are deep-rooted plants that dig down deep and bring up those nutrients to where other plants can access them. So that's right, plants can actually help us build our garden soil. So what we're starting to recognize is that natural systems are great soil builders. And among those are things like hedgerows and forests, because forests naturally grow in their fertility and diversity over time. They're great soil builders, and they're great for our gardens. So again, we get back to this permaculture model of gardening and forest clearing, so that we're actually surrounding our whole garden area with a natural fertility belt, a natural fertility system that's going to get into our garden soils too and help our gardens become more productive. And perhaps the best natural system of it all for building soil is wetland system. So if we have areas where we can produce natural ponds and wetlands are powerful fertility and soil building systems. So keep in mind that all of these things are great investments that not only help build our soil, and in the case of things like forests or food forests, provide us with other benefits at the same time. We can also think of them as things that help us save and retain water and turn that water into productive use.